I want to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2020, City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mark Vandeman.
Here.
Bruce Pauley.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
Chad Kiger.
Here.
Lori Groves. Here.
Okay, we got a full house tonight. Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, and if so, if there's no complaints or anything, I'd look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the September 8th meeting minutes.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye? Aye. That passed also. We have two items on the agenda tonight. First one is docket number 20-39, Jason Yoder for the Autumn Trace of Lebanon. The property is located at 810 and 906 North Lebanon Street here in Lebanon. The property is zoned planned business commercial and consists of 5.83 acres. Ben?
Very good. Good evening, board members. I'll walk through a little bit of the project overview for you and then the two specific requests that are for you here tonight. Just generally speaking, if they'll pull the screen up here, we'll look at the overall site. Outlined in yellow is the site. As you can see, it's kind of a very deep but relatively narrow site, which is the reason for a couple of the variance requests tonight. You see there are residential homes that border this property to the south and to the west, and then you've got the car dealership to the north. For reference, if you're familiar, this is the site where the car wash was proposed. Out here on Lebanon Street, so it's just north of that, between that and the car dealership on North Lebanon Street. So that's the overall site. As is mentioned, this is zone plan business commercial. Senior living, which is being proposed here, is a permitted use within the plan business commercial zoning district. So the use is permitted. Looking at the overall development site with the applicant, I'll pull up, before I get into detail there, I'll pull up the overall site. Actually, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. The overall site. This gives you an idea a little bit of the overall site. Lebanon Street again is on the right here. They're providing a single entry point, parking in the front and the back of the building. It is a U-shaped building that kind of sits like this. You've got access around both sides of the building. These are actually one-way access. The fire department requires 360-degree access, particularly on a two-story building like this, so they were required to put drive aisles on both sides of the building. So this kind of gives you a general idea of the layout of the property here. The two variance requests are related to, again, I mentioned they're very deep but relatively narrow properties. So what you have here is you have the building, you have the required building-based landscaping, the required sidewalks, the required drive aisles. What you're left with on the north and south sides of the property is a somewhat limited area. On the south, you have utilities that run through there, as well as drainage swales, providing drainage to the back of the site where there's a dry detention pond. Same on the north side, you also have an open swale up here that's conveying stormwater to the back of the property. So you have a very limited area to do anything. And there's two things that created a variance request because of this. The first is parking lot perimeter landscaping. As you can see, they've provided all the required buffer and parking lot perimeter landscaping out on the front of the building adjacent to Lebanon Street, as well as across the back of the property. And I will point out here, they are doing some revisions to the site plan on the west side of this property to the rear, because it is, the properties are so deep, they are directly adjacent to residential zoning, which requires a buffer yard. So they are modifying this rear of the parking area. They're going to be providing additional landscaping and either a mound or a fence. They're still working those details out, but they do intend to meet the buffer requirements here. But as you can see, because of those limited space on the north and south side, there isn't room to put the trees and shrubs in these spaces because of the open swales. So they have not provided the parking lot perimeter landscaping in those areas, and thus they're asking for a variance request due to the limited space. The second one is a landscape buffer. As I showed on the previous aerial, adjacent to the south in this area is single-family residentially zoned property and residentially used properties. So they are required to have, and for, between commercial property and residential property, it's a 30-foot buffer yard requiring a fence and landscaping. Again, just because of the limited space that you can see on the north and south sides of the building, they aren't able to provide the full 30 feet, as well as the fact that because there are utilities in this area and the drainage swale, they can't provide the landscaping either. There's just not space for it. So as an alternative, let me zoom in again a little bit so you can see it a little bit better, is they are providing along that south property line an 8-foot fence, privacy fence, that'll be set a foot off the property line that will run the entire length of the improved area. So essentially from the back of the parking lot here, it extends all the way up to the front of the improved area in this area. So because they don't have the space, then they worked with staff and decided it made more sense just to provide the privacy screen, the privacy fence here, the 8 feet tall, to provide as much screening as possible where they weren't able to provide the full depth, the 30 feet. So at least there's the visual screen. Just walking through a little bit from the staff report on the first variance for parking lot perimeter landscaping, I'll just reference the findings of fact in the staff report, that the relief from the perimeter landscaping requirement poses no imminent threat to the public's health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. And the request for relief from the perimeter landscape will not affect the use and value of the area adjacent property in an adverse manner. And then also the third one is the strict application of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. We have determined that there are practical difficulties because of the need to provide the 360-degree access, and underground utilities and drainage are limiting the space for the landscaping, thus supporting the idea of the variance. So with that, planning staff has recommended approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the perimeter landscaping requirement. And then number 2, the landscape buffer here on the south side. The relief from the buffer requirement poses no imminent threat to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. And the use and value of the area adjacent would not be affected in an adverse manner. They are providing the 8-foot tall privacy fence to provide the visual screen that's required of the buffer. And third, the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. Again, for the same reasons as the last one, the need to provide 360-degree access and the underground utilities and exposed drainage swales certainly provide limited area for this to occur. So with that then, on the second variance for the buffer, planning staff does recommend approval of this development standards variance request to permit relief from the landscape buffer requirement. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Ben, I have a question. How far is the building from the property line on the south side of the?
Let me see, I might have to go back to the site plan to see if I can provide dimensions. I can tell you that the drive aisle is 20 feet here. So we're somewhere around 40 feet, I would guess. Gary, do you have is that? Yeah, let me see if I can locate.
While we're looking, any elevation change from the building to the property line?
It's pretty flat. I don't know that there's much. It is a 2-story building, so it is still visible. 8-foot fence isn't going to totally screen a 2-story building. But yeah, the site is relatively flat, so if there's a change in elevation, it'd be minimal.
Looks probably roughly 40 feet.
Yeah, I would guess it's in the neighborhood of 40, 45 feet. Just looking at the scale here, that's 20 feet. That's about 15, probably another between 5 and 10, so.
Okay, any other questions?
What will the material be for the fence?
It's like a tan vinyl fence.
Are there any setback requirements from the property line to the park or to the driveway?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Any requirements, spacing requirements from the property line to the driveway?
To the driveway. This
driveway?
southern driveway?
Yeah.
So it would, because there's a buffer requirement, it would have to be 30 feet. But normally a drive without the buffer requirement only has to have a 5-foot setback.
Okay.
Anything else for Ben? Thank you, sir. Would applicant care to step forward? Yes.
So I'm Jason Yoder, TriMac Building Services. I'm actually the general contractor of the project. And Jim Gillen is the owner of Autumn Trace, so I figured I'd bring him with me.
Okay, you might just give us a brief summary of what you're doing and so forth.
So the project itself is a two-story assisted living building, 50 or 54? 54 units. As far as the construction part, an elevator, nice finishes on the inside, granite, countertops in every unit. Living spaces or private dining rooms, theaters, things like that inside the building.
I assume you know a little bit about Autumn Trace. We are a small regional provider of assisted living services, focusing 100% in secondary markets. We're a small group of individuals that have all grown up and raised in environments just like Lebanon. So we have no interest in the metropolitan areas. We function better in this type of environment because we can get more involved in the town. And we got into this. We have locations like Linton, Attica, Seymour, Madison, North Vernon, Rensselaer. Finding out that the local hospitals, we were just going to do two because hospitals were finding without enough or any at all of this product, the folks in their towns were leaving town to go to other towns to find this product. So Lebanon, a few years ago, Witham Hospital contacted us and wanted us to go out there, and we took a look around. Hospitals have called us almost everywhere we go. And it didn't work out with the land and so on and so forth, so it wasn't going to be right. So here recently, someone, can't even tell you who, said, you ought to take a look at Lebanon. And so it turns out the property was for sale. But what we do is a modernized version of the senior housing, which is all the amenities that folks are looking for these days. We focus on the private pay market. We do that. We're built to state licensure specs, but we choose to operate unlicensed on account of the medication differences, and I can get into all that if anyone cares to hear about it. But just providing the environment that the seniors are looking for nowadays, and the market study that we did showed Lebanon at a pretty significant deficit on what's coming down the pike for the need for this type of product. So we got together and we found the land, and so we thought we would proceed, and you know, as I said, it's not a corporate giant. It's just us guys doing what we do in environments like we're all born and raised. So we currently have 7 open and operating locations and 2 under construction right now. So I've been in this over 20 years. I can't do the math right now, but it's over 20 years.
Okay. Any questions?
One quick question. The drawing shows brick facade for the majority of it. Is that the plan still, or
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I believe it's brick and lap side.
And lap side.
Yeah.
the front and back? Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. This is a public meeting, and I think there's probably some people out there who want to talk.
Should we stay here? Go back?
No, you can go ahead and sit down. And anybody that wants to talk needs to, number one, you need to sign in, make sure you're signed in, but we will limit the conversation to 3 minutes, and I'll let everybody know what, about 2:30 to 2:45, and we can go from there. So it is open to the public, and anybody cares to speak, welcome to come up.
Hi there. My name's Mike Smith. I live over on Syracuse Drive. I guess a couple of questions I have are, you're saying senior living. Are you doing an age? You know, is it 55 and older, 60? Is there an age?
Designated 55 and older, primary attraction is our average age is around high 70s.
We got, how do we want to do this?
I would take the questions and.
Yeah, let's take the questions, and then we'll let you come up and answer the questions.
And then with that, is this people coming and going, or is this like purchase of a condo where they buy it and they're there for the remainder of their life? Or is this like a rehabilitation to where they get better and they move out and then somebody else moves in?
You understand, well,
He'll answer after you
Okay.
ask all your
And
go ahead and ask all your
Okay,
questions.
sorry. And then the last question I have is, and once again, this might be for a later meeting, has anybody done anything on traffic in that area as far as how the traffic will flow? Because there's a lot that goes on in that small area with, you know, you got Speedway, you're going to put a car wash, you got Pizza Hut. That light's already kind of tricky, so I didn't know if anybody's done any kind of traffic study for that area.
We'll let Ben answer that one in a little bit.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to come up and answer the two,
Why don't we do all that?
okay, wait a minute, sir. Let's do all the public hearings, or the comments, and then once everybody's done, we'll let you come up and answer them all. But, well, whatever, but, I mean, Kelly's keeping a list so that we won't miss anything. So, anybody else care to speak? Okay, nobody cares to speak, we'll end the public end of the hearing. So it's only 2 questions you gotta answer now, come on up.
I believe one was the age. We are designated a 55 and older community. However, you cannot discriminate on age, but in reality, as I said, most of our folks are going to be late 70s, 80s. We have in our current community several in their 100s. And it is a long-term, we don't call them rooms, it's suite living. People pay rent, year lease at a time, and then we add services à la carte on top of that. So it is intended to be a long-term, it's intended to be the best place these seniors can live for their remaining time on earth, is what it's intended to be. But it's not a lot of come and go, and there's no rehab. The thing closest to that is some home care companies do come in if someone has a short-term ailment, and they will actually do the help with inside our building. But no, it's year leases at a time, and it's these people's home. I may speak just briefly to the traffic if I could.
Absolutely.
Typically in these communities, between 5 and 8% of our residents drive. So you're not looking at a lot of residential traffic like you would an apartment building. Sometimes it gets 10 to 12. If it's 10%, 5 to 6 of these folks may drive. And they're not coming in and out, on an hourly basis. As far as extra traffic, you're going to have some visitation from folks, families, and typically that's minimal. And staffing-wise, we're looking at 23 to 25 total staff divided over 3 shifts, so there's not going to be a lot of staff in and out either. Was that both questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to have a bus, the
We will
facility
have
to
a
have a
bus. We
bus?
do provide transportation to and from doctor's appointment, local shopping, and so on and so forth. So we will have a bus for outings, assuming someday we can go somewhere. And by the way, the family traffic right now is not very heavy either. But yeah, we'll have a bus, and it's to be used for outings, appointments, shopping trips, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question, Bruce.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Of your 7 properties, are they all pretty much the same build-out, same layout, or do you customize them to fit the
We
lot?
really only have 2 models. One's a 1-story model, and one's a 2-story. It just depends on the site that's available. And we found out that, to put a 1-story 56-unit building, you need 7, 8, 9 acres with
Right.
retention and all that. Well, there's a lot of times a site like that's not available. So we have the 2-story and the 1-story model.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Ben, do you want to address anything?
Just to touch a little more on the traffic question, that is a state road in that area. So while we do have some traffic counts for Lebanon Street, there's only so much we can do in terms of improvements. Those all have to go through the state, and they regulate everything that happens with that road. So we're even timing of lights and things like that, which seem fairly simple, or like a monumental task to get changes made. So the state regulates everything related to that road, the width, the sidewalks, street lights, everything. So, if there was something like this that generated a significant amount of traffic, which this type of use typically does not, but if it was a major traffic generator, we might be able to petition the state for some modifications. But they do hold all the cards in terms of how things happen in terms of improvement. So as the applicant said, this is not a major traffic generator. You don't have people living there that drive regularly. So you're really talking about employee and an occasional visitor traffic. So it's not a major traffic generator as you would typically see. And certainly during rush hour, my guess is you're not going to see much traffic coming and going here at all other than employees.
Did NDOT have any recommendations or
They're going
comments?
to have to get, I think they've started conversations about the drive cut, and that's when something like that would come up, but my guess is there aren't any significant comments, or wouldn't be. Again, it's not, if it was a major traffic generator that required turn lanes or something like that, that might be a possibility, but again, this doesn't generate that much traffic where it would really cause any major issues.
Did all of the certified letters come back and everything? You're good there?
Everything was sent out appropriately, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ben, I have some concerns about the first development standard variance, the landscape buffer, and the proposal of a 8-foot high privacy fence instead of the landscaping. My concern is that it will adversely affect the value of the adjacent property, meaning that those properties on Syracuse on the south side are going to be potentially looking out their back window at a two-story building. And I'm concerned that we don't have any buffers tall enough to screen that building from the residential area. What kind of conversations have you guys had about the proposed fence versus the landscaping?
Well, I mean, really, the only way to provide landscaping would be to eliminate the drive, and the fire department's not going to let the drive be eliminated because they need to be able to provide fire service all the way around the building, so.
Yeah. Based on existing, the existing plans, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's, the floor plan is their floor plan. I guess if we're talking about trying to shrink the building, if that's what you're suggesting, that's probably the only other alternative.
I noticed there was some additional property available on the back side of the land there, and then there's like a courtyard space in the middle. I just was wondering if that could be customized or better utilized to free up.
And that's a question they asked the applicant. I mean,
Yeah.
this is their floor plan, this is their building footprint that they've done.
Yeah,
It's either a single story or two-story, so two-story would obviously have the smaller footprint of the two options.
okay.
I got a question for the owner, but maybe you remember. I guess number one, is the car wash still going in eventually? And you had proposed, you're going to have to come up here so you can answer the question. You had proposed privacy fence for the car wash.
That's correct.
Are they gonna, is that gonna be that sand color? I mean, are they gonna be identical and come?
His is tan, mine's tan, that's what mine is. Yeah, well, we have no problem matching whatever he wants to match.
Okay, but do you remember what the height is on that?
It's 8 foot.
Okay,
The same thing as behind Speedway, if you've seen Speedways.
okay, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Anything else? Anybody?
How many stories is the car wash?
It's a single story.
Single
car wash.
story.
Is it
Okay.
two-story? You got some second floor space in there? Okay.
Okay.
In plain business commercial, you're allowed up to 35 feet, so it's
Yeah,
theoretically a three-story building.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay. The public meeting is already closed. Sorry. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve docket 20-39 as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kelly?
Mark Vandeman,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
No.
Lori Gross. Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Okay, the next docket is Habitat for Humanity. It's docket number 20-40. Excuse me. The property is located 501 South Cone Street here in Lebanon. The property is zoned general industrial and comprised of approximately a third of an acre. The subject lot configuration is 139 feet wide, 106 feet deep. Ben?
All right, this is going to seem like a very familiar request for Habitat for Humanity, because it seems like every property that's gifted to them or they purchase is zoned incorrectly for residential uses, even though it's in a residential area. And that's essentially what we've got here. This is actually a property that they purchased from the city through a bid process. It is southwest of downtown along Coombs Street. This is kind of a mixed-use area. There's some older industrial in this area, but then also a lot of residential. As you can see here in the aerial, you've got storage units to the north. You've got residential units primarily around it. This is primarily a residential area, but as you go further west, it does get into more commercial uses or industrial uses. But as you can see here, this site is not sized appropriately for general industrial uses. It doesn't meet any of the lot size requirements. You couldn't meet any of the setbacks. It's a residential lot. It just happens to be zoned industrial. So again, like I said, this is probably the fifth request they've had in the last 3 years for something like this. It's always zoned multifamily or commercial or something like that. So the request is here to allow single-family residential uses within the general industrial zoning district. It's a use variance request. The 5 findings of fact for use variance are indicated in the staff report. Again, as I mentioned, in terms of criteria, the need for the variance arises for some condition peculiar to the property. Again, it's zoned for industrial uses, but it's not sized appropriately. It's sized for residential uses. That's what's in the general vicinity. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship. Again, this property wouldn't be buildable if it was required to meet the general industrial zoning classification and development standards. And the approval does not interfere substantially with the City of Lebanon comprehensive plan. Our plan, which was just updated just a year ago, designates this property for mixed-density residential uses. So the applicant is proposing use that is consistent with the comprehensive plan designation. And with that, the City of Lebanon planning staff recommends approval of the variance of use request to permit single-family residential uses within the general industrial zoning classification. You have to answer any questions.
No questions? Thank you, sir. Would somebody from Habitat care to step forward?
Hi there, thank you for hearing us. Another variance request, appreciate it.
Okay. Is there anything you want to tell us about it?
No, we're excited to get this property. We've been waiting for this one and another one on Meridian, which we'll have to apply for a variance for that one as well. Just excited to be able to keep building in Lebanon. We did complete 2 homes this year. We're super proud of that. It's been a tough year, as everybody knows, and we were still able to build 2 homes for 2 single moms with kids that now have a place to call home. So we're real happy about that. So this lot is, we're going to split it into 2, and we'll be able to put 2 nice houses on it.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Once again, it's a public meeting. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come forward, speak? Okay, we will close the public end of the meeting, and I think it's pretty straightforward. Look for motions.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve docket number 20-40.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Kelly.
Mark Vandeman.
Aye.
Bruce Polly.
Aye.
Ron Edwards.
Aye.
Chad Kiger.
Aye.
Lori Gross. Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Do we have any further business for tonight? Well, if that's the case, we'll close the meeting for tonight, and the next regular scheduled board meeting will be Monday, December the 7th. Pardon me?
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Well, okay. Okay, motion to adjourn, need a second. Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so meeting's adjourned, and the next meeting will be December the 7th, right here. So everybody have a great evening. Thank you.